Hey guys, it's Jeff Farina with Pocketnow.com, and in this video I'm going to continue my series of comparing the HTC EVO 4G to the Samsung Galaxy S. However, this time it's going to be all about the hardware, so let's go ahead and jump right into it. Alright, and we are back, and one of the first things that I want to touch on is actually going to be the screen size of this hardware. So basically the EVO 4G, which is actually right here on the left, has a 4.3-inch screen, whereas the Samsung Galaxy S has the 4-inch screen. With that being said, the EVO 4G screen is an LCD, whereas the Samsung Galaxy's is a Super AMOLED. So two very different types of screens there. Many people have talked about how the Super AMOLED is a much, let's say, clearer screen, a lot better color saturation. The black levels on the Samsung Galaxy S and the Super AMOLED screen are absolutely amazing. The screen definitely looks better than the EVO 4Gs. Some of the colors on the EVO 4G look a little washed out. With that being said, though, I sometimes feel that the detail on the Super AMOLED is almost too much. I can see some of the grain in the icons and any little imperfection in some of the icons and some of the apps. For example, the beautiful widgets over here, it's very hard to tell, but there's actually some clipping almost in the art itself of the numbers. So once again, you can see some of the imperfections a little easier than you would on the EVO. Another thing too with the screen size is I've kind of grown very fond of the 4.3-inch screen. 4 is great. 4 is bigger than most of the phones out there, like the iPhone, for example. However, I have grown attached to my EVO with the 4.3-inch screen. It's much easier for me to text. I have a tough time texting on a capacitive phone, making little typos here and there, whatever it may be, and I really have an easier time with the EVO 4G texting on that. So I have to say that gets the upper hand for me there as far as the texting goes, but as far as the screen resolution and the screen picture, the Samsung Galaxy S is going to do it. Now, as far as the onboard memory goes, the HTC EVO 4G has a strange number. It's 440 megabytes of onboard storage, whether it be for music, apps, that sort of thing. You can also put up to a 32 gigabyte micro SD card in there. The Samsung Galaxy S is going to come with 16 gigabytes of onboard storage, so that's a pretty big increase right there. And the same idea, you can use up to a 32 gigabyte micro SD card. So this gives you a little bit more of an option to, I would say, increase the size right off the bat. You don't really have to buy the extra memory card if you don't want to. I know for me, like I've put a lot of music on my Samsung Galaxy S already, stock without a memory card in there, and I've been using it to play some of my songs now instead of having to buy a memory card to use an iPod or whatever it may be. Now, moving on to what's under the hood of these two devices. This is actually where there's a lot of debate to be had. The processor of both of these phones is actually a 1 gigahertz processor. However, they're both different variants. The HTC EVO 4G will use a 1 gigahertz Qualcomm Snapdragon processor, whereas the Samsung Galaxy S uses a 1 gigahertz Samsung Hummingbird Cortex-A8 processor. So people have been debating back and forth as of which is faster. There's been many articles put out, lots of speculation here and there. The way it seems right now, the Samsung Galaxy S does have a faster processor, and that also continues with the GPU, the graphics processor of the Samsung Galaxy. Supposedly, it actually performs better than the HTC EVO 4Gs. I would say we'll give it time. We'll see more extensive testing coming out, and especially where more and more games are continually being developed for the Android market. We'll see what happens there and what really comes out on top in terms of the gameplay capability, the frames per second, that sort of thing. Now, both devices can record high-definition video in 720p. The difference is going to lie in the still picture capabilities. The HTC EVO is a 8-megapixel camera, whereas the Samsung Galaxy S is a 5-megapixel camera. I also want to touch on some of the media capabilities with these two devices. Many of you know the HTC EVO 4G has the Micro HDMI out port on the bottom, which would allow you to actually plug this device into maybe a receiver or a high-definition TV of some kind, any device that has the HDMI port. Samsung Galaxy S does not have that. However, it is DLNA capable, so if you're on a wireless network, you can actually stream your media to something like that. Maybe it's a TV, maybe it's a computer. I know some amplifiers or receivers now have that capability built right in, so that's a pretty cool feature that we really are starting to see now in some of the new devices. Getting a little up close and personal with these two devices, the HTC EVO weighs 6 ounces, and the Samsung Galaxy S weighs 4.16 ounces. Now, I'm actually showing you kind of the difference in dimensions right here. I won't bore you into getting too into those dimensions, but they are somewhat close. I'm just going to show you on the screen, rather than reading off these numbers to you. But the Galaxy itself is definitely not as tall as the HTC EVO. That being said, the width is very close. As you can see here, the width is very close. The fact that this tapers off, they both taper off, is a little bit different with the form factor, but the main thing is, for me, is the height. I will say, though, at least for me, the Samsung Galaxy S feels almost a little too light, almost a little too plasticky. I personally attribute heft with quality. If something's light, I'm not a big fan. I almost feel like it's been cheaply made. And the Samsung Galaxy, in my opinion, is borderline almost too light. So, that's one of the things the EVO has going for it, at least in my opinion, is the heft. A lot of people don't like how much this phone weighs, but hey, again, it's all personal preference. And lastly, I do want to do a screen test between these two phones outdoors in direct sunlight. So that's going to come right up next. Let's go ahead and move on to that. All right, guys, we're back, and we are now outside, and actually the sun is directly overhead. So this is pretty much the best test that we're going to have possible. It's a nice hot day. The sun's directly overhead, and as you can see here, we have the EVO 4G on the left and the Samsung Galaxy S on the right. And in terms of the viewing, I do have to say they're both fairly decent in the sun. That's one of the things I do like about the EVO was, I can see it in the sun, whereas before I had trouble with my Nexus 1. With that being said, once again, just like the Samsung Wave, again, it's a little hard to tell because of the angle here, but the Samsung Galaxy S is a little easier to see in the sun. And I'm just going to try and hold these up so it's a little bit easier, but again, it's tough because of the angling here. But if we do go into the browser, for example, we can pull up Pocketnow.com, and as you can see here, the page itself on the EVO, you can actually see the background better, at least in my opinion. So in terms of the browsing with the white background, the EVO is actually easier to see in the sun. The screen's bigger, which makes it much better. It might be something to do with the LCD screen or the actual white balance itself. The brightness is at full on both of these devices, so there isn't an advantage there whatsoever. But when you're browsing through the menus, I do find that the EVO is a little dimmer, or more, I would say more glare, because of the actual sun itself. For example, if we go to the applications menu here, a little bit easier time to see the actual applications, at least for me, on the Samsung Galaxy S. But either way, they both work great, so I can't complain there. Alright, and that about does it for the hardware comparison between the HTC EVO 4G and the Samsung Galaxy S. Stay tuned for my next video, which will be part 2 of the software comparison between these two devices. As always, guys, thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up, and feel free to comment and ask any questions you may have.